Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. Look here, y'all. In prison, people can pretend to be anybody they want to be. You've heard me say this before, right? Mainly because you can't verify, what a person is really saying, right? About who they know, whatever the case may be. People in here will tell you anything. Anything about themselves, anything about their character, anything. Claim to know celebrities, you name it, they tell you that, right? Just to convince you of this or that narrative, right? But here's the thing. The most commonly used con in prison, because that's what that is. That's a con. Is the friend con. People pretending to be someone's friend so they can benefit from it, right? And this particular con is the most commonly used one because there's no way for you to know that it's a con until it's too late. That's just the bottom line. And in this episode, I'm going to share a story with you that took place. It was a few years ago. It's a recent story, that I heard about. And there were these two guys, they were cellmates. And the con artist, he was a short time. And when I say a short time, I'm talking about somebody that's got like maybe a couple of years, maybe 3-4 years before they go home. Compared to a long timer that may have 10 or more years before they go home. You know what I'm saying? So again, the con artist in this story was the short timer, and the victim in this story was the long timer and his wife. Keep in mind, the victim in this story is the long timer and his wife. And this story is more common than you might think. During my time in prison, I've heard this particular story play itself out many, many times, y'all. So sit back and enjoy this show, right? Because this story is called The Friend Con. Okay, check me out, y'all. In the penitentiary, right, you'll have people that meet each other and become friends or appear to be friends for the oddest reasons, right? These two individuals that I'm talking about in this particular story, they met each other on the weight pile, lifting weights, right? The long timer, he worked out every day. Fit, took care of himself, jogged all the time, played sports when he can, but he was a very good softball player. I'm talking about this guy could play softball. You know what I'm saying? He played shortstop, right? Real good dude. Treated everybody with respect. He went to visit, every weekend. His wife came to see him every weekend. She didn't have to drive too far because she didn't live too far from the prison that he was at. Considering the circumstances, he's one of those people that in the penitentiary that he's pretty much got it made. He doesn't get in any trouble, had a good job at the prison. He just leans back. He's doing his time, going about his business, treating everybody with respect until, a problem comes up. Then he deals with it or whatever the case may be. But most of the time, things just seem to go around him, and he didn't disrespect nobody. Something came his way. Everybody knew that it wasn't him that was the problem. It had to be somebody else that was causing the problem. You know what I mean? Wasn't a coward at all, right? Now, here we go. He runs into this guy one day on the weight pile. A younger dude, not that much younger than him. Both of them, when they're like 30s, early 40s. But the other dude, the one that had the short time, he was younger than him. But he wasn't so young that he was like naive to life. You feel what I'm saying? This dude had been in and out of prison a couple of times. Not on anything major, but he had been in and out of prison a couple of times. And he wasn't green. He knew how to handle himself in prison. He knew the lingo. He knew how to mind his business. He knew how to get his money. He knew how to do all those things. But mainly, this guy knew how to befriend people. This man was a master at the friend con. Now check this out. This is what he did. The long timer down on the ball field working out one day, lifting his weights. So here comes the short timer. Said, man, can I get in with you and work out? He's like, yeah, sure, whatever. You know what I'm saying? He said, what you working on today? The long timer told him, I'm working on my chest today, man. You got to get it tight, whatever the case may be, right? He said, I'm doing some flat bend right now if you want to get in on it, right? He was like, yeah. He said, well, so the old timer tells him, look here, man, get you a couple of warm-up sets in, get your muscles loose, because you know you don't want to hurt yourself. So the short timer was like, yeah, you're right. You know, he said, I've worked out a few times, but not that many, you know what I'm saying, not that much in my life. So I appreciate you helping me out like that. Right then and there, he's trying to make it seem as though the long timer is giving him advice that he's happy to accept. So anyway, he gets down on the bench. He's pressing whatnot. He's acting as though, you know what I'm saying, the weight is too heavy. So the long timer said, hold on a second, put it in the rack. You know what I'm saying? He racks the weights. He takes a little bit of the weight off, puts it back on, tells him to get back in the rack. And then he gets it, he's lifting the weight. He's doing pretty good, right? So the long timer says, look, you got to make sure that you're not trying to just lift what everybody else is lifting. Lift what you can lift. He's giving this young dude, well, somewhat younger than him, advice that anybody will be happy to get. He's being real helpful towards him. And the young dude is like very open to receiving the advice that he's giving. So they work out that day, and from that day on, they become workout partners. So every day after the count clears at 4:30, they head to the ball field. They're working out, becoming good friends. After about 2 or 3 months, guess what happens? The long timers, Sally, gets in some trouble and he goes to the hole. So he's not sure if his Sally's going to get back out of the hole. So he asked the short time, he said, man, look here, my Sally might not be coming back, right? And even if he does, you know what I'm saying, they probably won't put him back in the cell with me. Do you want to be my cellmate? And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, I'd love to come up here. They lived in different units at this time. So he was like, yeah, I'd love to come up to the unit you. And I heard this laid back. He said, oh, yeah. In the pod that I'm in, everybody's cool, chill. We look out for each other. No problems in there, man. You'll fit right in. So they go to the unit manager, fill out the cell change forms. She asked him, are you sure you want to move in together? Both of them say yeah. So she said, okay, I'll make the move in a day or so. A couple of days go by, boom. She moves them in together. Now they're cellies, right? Now it's like they work out together. They don't work together, but they work out together every day, breaking bread, eating meals together. Everything is hunky-dory, right? Everything is cool between them. You know what I'm saying? So now, the short term, he's in. He's seeing that, you know what I'm saying, he's got this guy believing that he's his friend. So now it's all a matter of how much can he push the situation. So he asked him, he said, man, is it any way that, because like I told you, the long time he goes to visit every weekend. His wife is driving to see him every weekend. Like I said, she didn't live too far from him. So he asked him, he said, man, could you think it'd be any trouble if your wife could pick up my girlfriend and bring her to visit with her when she comes up? And he was like, well, let me ask her, you know what I'm saying, to see. And he asked him, where does she live at? He told him. So he got on the phone and told his wife. And when he told his wife, she was all, yeah, sure, no problem. As long as you think it's straight, I'll do that, no problem at all. You know, because he had been telling his wife about dude. And so she was like, oh, he sounds like a nice guy. So anyway, here we go. So she calls the girl. And the girl's like, yeah, whenever you're going up, let me know ahead of time. That way I'll be ready, you know what I'm saying, and we can get up there and visit and enjoy ourselves and go back. So this particular weekend was cookout weekend. Cookout weekends are when our families are allowed to bring us food that we can cook on the grill. Hamburgers, steak, hot dogs, stuff like that, right? It's probably the best time to go to visit, right? So they both decide, look, we're going to go up, we're going to have a visit, we're going to cook out, you know what I'm saying, and enjoy ourselves. You know, that kind of thing, right? So they split the bill, you know what I mean, and bought all of this food to take up there. And a lot of families do that. They spend way more money than they need to and bring enough food, and then you usually end up sharing it with other people and so on and so forth, right? So anyway, visit is going well. Everybody's happy, this, and that. So they leave visit. When they leave the visit, they get back to the unit. It's almost lockdown time. So they go in and they both of them say, well, I'm going to get on the phone after, count clears, because they don't work out on the weekend. So both of them get on the phone after the count clears, and they catch their respective wives or girlfriends when, they had just gotten home. So the long time is talking to his wife, and she's telling him how much she enjoyed the visit and all this and that. And the short term, he's on the phone, he's yelling. He's yelling at his wife, calling her out of her name and all this and that. So he hangs up the phone. So now the long term, he's still on the phone talking to his wife, And she heard this yelling in the background. So she said, "Is everything fine? What's going on? Y'all usually don't have that kind of stuff going on in that pod." And he was like, "Yeah, that's my celly. He's on the phone. He just got off the phone with his wife, well, his girlfriend, but everybody calls his wife." He said he just got off the phone with his girlfriend and yelling. They must be having some kind of disagreement or argument. He said, "I'll talk to him later and see what's going on." So his wife said, "Okay, yeah, look into that, right? Because that's not good to be talking to her like that." So he gets off the phone with his wife. He goes into the room and he's talking to his celly, trying to find out what's going on. His celly is upset. He's pissed about something. But he doesn't tell his celly. He doesn't tell the old time exactly what's going on. So anyway, they work out. The week comes up. They work out all week. Everything is good. They're breaking bread with each other, cooking meals and all this and that. But he notices that his celly, the short timer, doesn't get on the phone, doesn't call his girlfriend anymore, doesn't say anything about her. So he doesn't bring the subject up. So that weekend comes up. So the old time said, "Do you want my wife to pick up your girlfriend and bring her to visit this weekend?" He was like, "No, forget her. I'm done with her. Blah, blah, blah." All of this and that, right? So when he gets on the phone, he talks to his wife. He said, "Well, you don't have to worry about bringing her to visit anymore. He said he's done with her," and so on and so forth. So his wife said, "Oh, okay then." She said, I'll just stop by and check on her to see if she's okay because, he may change his mind another day or whatever. I'm just going to continue to be cool with her in the event that, he changes his mind and I have to ride up there with her." She said, "I don't want to be riding up there with her when, if I stop going over there, stop checking her, stop seeing about it. I'm just going to stay cool with her until I know if this is going to be a permanent breakup or not because I don't want to feel awkward." So he's like, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Stop by, check on her, make sure she's okay. But I'm not going to say anything to him about it." And both of them said that was cool. So on her way to visit, she stops by, and when she stops by, there's another car in the parking lot, in the driveway of the house that the short-termer's ex-girlfriend now stays in. So the girlfriend sees her. She comes out and she's like, "Everything okay?" She was like, "Yeah, everything's okay." She said, "Well, I'm on my way up to visit. I'll catch up with you later. I just wanted to stop by and see how you were doing." She was like, "Yeah, everything's fine." By that time, here comes a man out on the porch. So she looks at him and she looks at him, and then the girlfriend, she turns around and looks at him, and before she could even ask, she said, "Oh, this is just a friend of mine. It's not somebody that I mess with all the time. He's just a friend of mine." And she was just volunteering information. She told him, "He knows I got a friend. I told him about him, and he's mad about it. He can't handle, that I got somebody that I see out here every now and then, right?" So she was like, "It's not my business. I don't have nothing to say about that, blah, blah, blah." So she leaves, goes to visit. She's at visit with her husband, and she's telling her husband what she just saw. This dude, this and that, and all this and that, right? So both of them agree that they're not going to even talk about that because that's not their business. So he doesn't tell his celly about this dude that's at the house with his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend now, right? So time goes on, and his celly doesn't bring her up no more. This is like after about 6 months, he doesn't say a word about her. Now it comes times up, he's getting ready to go up for parole. So he's about to go up for parole, and everything is fine. He should make it. Everything is great. So he goes in there for parole. They put him off for a year, tell him he has to take some classes. So he's not mad or upset about it. He knows what he has to do. They've told him he has to take these classes before they're going to let him out on parole. So he enrolls in the classes, and that year they're working out good, kicking it, talking, all this and that, and he's showing his the long-termer making a fatal mistake here. Starts to show the short-timer pictures of his wife in lingerie. She is sending him some pictures and stuff like that. And the short-timer starts to secretly develop feelings. Start imagining being with her. But he doesn't tell the old-timer, the long-timer, what's really going on in his head. He's acting as if, yeah, no biggie. You know, she's cute, all this and that, real nonchalant about it, right? So after about 6 or 8 months, the docket comes out for the next parole hearings, and he's on it. And it's going to be right at a year that he goes back up for parole. Now check this out. A couple of months before he gets ready to go home, he sneaks and writes a letter to his cellies, the old-timer's wife, telling her how much he appreciates her help and how his cellie, you know what I'm saying, her husband is like a brother to him, and that when he gets out, he's going to make sure that, you know, he takes care of him, and if he can be of any help to her, for her to let him know. So, for whatever reason, she feels awkward. The old timer told me that, to let him know that, but she tells him. And he's like, no big deal. He didn't say anything out of the way. She said, but did you give him the address? He was like, no, he must have seen it on an envelope. Now, here's the problem with that. The long timer doesn't see anything wrong or doesn't want to address the issue. This is what he told me. He didn't want to deal with the issue of dude is going on his shelf looking at his addresses and then writing his wife. So he doesn't confront him on that. Fatal mistake. Fatal mistake. He should have confronted him about that, but he didn't. Now here's the thing. The short timer goes up for parole. They give him parole. He makes parole. He paroles out. After a couple of months, everything's going good for him. He's got him a car. Now the old timer is keeping up with him. He's calling him, talking to him, and he's like, man, I got you, this and that. I'm going to send you something on your account or whatever the case may be. Never does. After a couple of months, guess what he does, y'all? He pays the long timer's wife a visit. Real cordial and nice about it. Telling her, you know, how much he appreciated, you know what I'm saying, all the things that she's doing for her husband and all of this and that. How he appreciated it, you know, looking out for him. It shows the sign of a good woman and all this and that. And he's saying he wishes he had a woman like that. So she's saying, she's talking to him and telling him, you'll be fine, you'll find you somebody, just get you a good job, and then at the end of the day, you know, you'll be okay. So at the end of the day, here's what happens. He finds himself in a bad situation one day. He's been talking to the long timer on the phone, but things are not looking up for him. He's working, but he's not being able to get past the hump, you know, because he started smoking them drugs again. So he pays the wife of the long timer a visit in the middle of the night. He goes over there, knocking on the door. She comes to the door. He's hot. He's like, please, can I talk to you? Can I talk to you? I need to talk to somebody. I'm just not feeling right. She's like, what? Why are you here? Why did you come over here? This and that. You shouldn't be over here. This and that. So he continues to knock on the door. And now the lights come on at her neighbor's house. So she doesn't want any problems. You know what I'm saying? So she said, come on in real quick, but you can't stay here. You got to leave. But come on in for the time being. Because he was intoxicated and he was hot. So she let him in. They're sitting there talking. She said, hold on, let me go in the back and put on some more clothes. So she goes in the back and she had on her night clothes, right? This is what, you know, the long-termer told me. She had on her night clothes. So she takes off the robe. It's like a silky type robe. She takes off the robe and she has on, you know, her shorts and her top and all of this and that, but you can see skin. Let's put it that way. You can see skin. So she's trying to put on, you know what I'm saying, some sweatpants and all that over the top of it. And she turns around and she sees him standing in the door of the bedroom. And she's like, why are you back here? He said, oh, I'm sorry. So he's like, I just came back here to make sure ain't no man back here. You know what I'm saying? I don't want you messing around on my brother. She was like, no, I don't do stuff like that. So they go back into the living room. And when they get back into the living room, now he's talking all this crazy stuff about this woman that he was trying to talk to that didn't know how to treat a man, and getting a little sexual with her, talking about how she doesn't know how to do this and doesn't know how to do that. You know, sexual things like that, right? So she's feeling a little awkward, and she tells me, look, I think it'll be best if you leave. You know what I'm saying? I'll tell my husband that you dropped by and that, you know, to expect to, you know, that you want to talk to him. And he leaves. He leaves. So she tells her husband what's going on and what happened that night. So her husband, he calls him. And he's talking to him. He tells him, look, man, I don't appreciate you going over. Don't go over to my wife's house anymore. You know what I'm saying? Period, point blank. So he acts as if he's respecting it and all this. And he said, man, you my brother. I wouldn't do anything wrong like that, man. He said, I just went by there to check on her to make sure she was okay. He said, you don't go by my house at night, man. You don't do that. Don't go by my house at night. So here we go. Now, he acts as if everything was cool. He said, I got you, bro. I understand. I won't do it again. But when he gets off the phone, evidently, he's pissed. He's pissed. So he goes by the house again, right after he just got off the phone. And when he gets to the house, she happens to be on the phone with her husband, talking to her husband. And her husband is telling her, I just finished talking to him and he's not going to be coming by there anymore. And she's like, well, he's here now. So she's standing on the porch talking to her husband on the phone, and here comes this guy trying to get in, knocking on the door. She was like, you can't come over here. I'm talking to my husband on the phone, this, and that. So this is what he does, y'all. This is what he does. This is the easiest way to mess people's minds up in the penitentiary. He said, well, you need to, while she's on the phone, okay? He said, well, you need to tell your husband what we did last night. I don't think it's right for you to keep a secret from him. I don't want to keep any secrets from my brother. She said, what are you talking about? He said, tell your brother what we did tell my brother what we did last night. Now she's panicking because her husband is saying, what is he talking about? What is he talking about? And she's looking at him and she sees that he's laughing. He thinks this is funny, but he knows what he's doing. He's planting that seed of doubt in the long timer's mind that his wife is being honest with him and that he's the only one that's trying to keep it real with her. Now we got a problem. Now we got a problem because one of the things that happens in the penitentiary all the time, when you get into a deep conversation, all of a sudden the phone will say 1 minute left. And it's always somebody waiting in line to use the phone when something is going on and you really need to call back. So he wasn't able to call his wife back. He had to get off the phone because it was 1 minute left, time up on the 30 minutes. Now his wife is stuck there with this idiot. And she's telling him, asking him, why did you do that? Why did you say that to him? And she's upset and she's crying. And now he calls himself wanting to comfort her. He tries to comfort her. But he forces his way into the house. And when he forces his way into the house, y'all, guess what happens? He forces himself up on her. And he has his way with her. Nobody comes to her aid. Nobody could hear her screaming. Nobody. And he has sex with her. Now she's really afraid of what's going to happen. And he tells her, tell your husband that. And I know he'll leave you. Tell your husband that. So now she's afraid to do the thing that she should have done. She's afraid to go report it because she knows that just the fact that she believes, rather, the fact that she's had sex with another man is going to hurt her husband regardless of the circumstances. She's afraid that she's going to lose her husband. So she doesn't say anything at first. But she's changing. She goes to the prison to see her husband, as usual. But he could tell something was off. He could tell something was off. And it took him a few months to get her to admit what had happened. Took him a few months to get her to admit what had happened. When she finally admitted it to him, he told her, go to the police. Go report that to the police. And she was so afraid to go report it now because it's been a couple of months. Who's going to believe her? So she goes and reports it anyway. And her husband lets her know, I'm with you. I am with you. So she reports it to the police. The police pick him up. He tells them it was consensual. His word against hers. There's no proof. That's what he thought anyway. Turns out that one of the neighbors saw it through their window. They saw this. But at the time, they didn't know what was going on. But when the detectives were out talking and investigating, they went to this neighbor. Now, the wife doesn't know this. The wife did not know it was a witness to it. So when they went and talked to this neighbor, she told him, yeah, I saw him force his way into the house, but I didn't think anything of it because he had been over there a couple of times before. So she thought that she was having a relationship with this guy, you know. But it turns out after she reported it and the police investigated, they had somebody, this neighbor was a witness to what went on unbeknownst to the long-termer's wife. So that backed up her story. They didn't have the physical evidence that they needed because she had taken a shower and all of this and that, washed her clothes. But they had an eyewitness to what happened. And she was willing to testify. And so she came to court. They charged it. And she testified for her. And guess what happened? They sentenced Buck back to the penitentiary with 30 years. 30 years for rape. Now he's back in the penitentiary. Filed an incompatible against the long-timer because, well, he filed an incompatible. Basically, the prison put the incompatible on them. That means that they will never be housed at the same facility. That's all that means, y'all. But the good thing about this story is that the husband supported his wife. But he learned that, you know, people in here will pretend to be your friend and get out and do something like that to you. So he's very cautious now about who he messes with. And when he came to me and we were talking about this, you know, it really touched me because he knew that he should have dealt with that when that guy wrote his wife that letter. But he didn't want to do that because he didn't want to believe that this guy would betray him like that. But he learned the hard way, and he blamed himself for his wife's rape because there were signs before, like I said, getting the address, writing his wife, dropping by in the middle of the night. There were things happening that should have sent up flares with him, but he ignored them. Why? Because of the friend con. That friend con made him lower the wall. That friend con made him give the benefit of the doubt. But he didn't even know this guy. He met this guy in here, got to know him working out, or so he thought. This guy presented a whole new narrative of himself to the long timer and everybody else, that he was this good guy, but he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. And that's the kind of con artists that we have in here. So those individuals out there that think that you come in here and you're going to meet these people that have something in common with you, such as a crime and all this and that, and you're going to meet these people that are going to be good friends with you, what you need to understand is this. Some people you meet in here are going to be some people that you could probably deal with and trust for the rest of your life. The majority of people that you're going to meet in here are people you better not want to ever take home to meet your family. Because if they're conning in here, they're going to be conning out there. The problem is, it's hard to figure out who's conning and who's not. But you can't, because you can't verify anything in here. If somebody tells me that they've changed their life, I watch them. I don't go by what they say, I go by what they do. If somebody tells me that they have my best interests at heart, I watch them and see what they do. How do they treat other people? Because if they treat other people in a snotty, sour way, well, guess what? They'll do that to me as well. You understand? See, a good indicator of how people are is how they treat other people. Not you. Not the people that they call their friends and their family. A good indicator of people and who they really are is how they treat other people. Because for the most part, who a person is when nobody's watching is what they really are, right? But here's the thing. You can't be everywhere at all times to watch everybody doing everything, right? Keep up with me now. But what you can do is recognize how they treat people other than you. Because usually the people that are not around you are the people that they might have issues with. And if they mistreat them outside of your presence, keep up with me here. If they mistreat them outside of your presence, then guess what? That's who they are when nobody's watching. Because you're not there to watch them. So there's a chance that they'll do this to you. Now, what you can do, if you care about people, and I do, I call them on that. I say, bro, why did you do that? Why are you treating him like that? Or why are you acting like that toward this person? And I have a conversation with them. Because sometimes bad behavior is just a cry for help. Bad behavior is just a cry for help, y'all. So whether they do it in your presence or outside of your presence, and you say that you care about them, then call them on that. Call them on that. Because the friend con takes place not just in here, y'all, but out there too. Keep that in mind. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.